Hey, what is going on, Madden family? We're here talking about the final review of the Madden 20 beta. Again, if you guys got to play the beta, please keep in mind two things. One, should have left feedback. Two, it is a beta. This is not the final version of the game, so things can and will change based on, when the final game comes out in about 5 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it may be. I am only going to talk about the things that I personally experienced. There's going to be things that I may not have experienced and you experienced. There's going to be things I've seen on Twitter and the feedback forums, which, again, if I didn't run into it, I'm not going to talk about it because I just don't feel that that is fair. I only want to talk about the things that I saw or had, grew an opinion on. Now, I think the first thing that everyone is talking about is the pass rush. Is the pass rush itself overpowered? It's still probably a little bit, right? It probably is a little bit. Is it going to get tuned something? It probably is. It probably is. Should it? That's up for debate. There's a lot of questions, a lot of numbers going on Twitter about how it's realistic. Everyone's arguing, well, it's realistic. You shouldn't have all the time in the world. You shouldn't have all the time in the world. Okay, that's fair. And I totally agree with it. I don't think that you should just be able to sit back in the pocket forever. But an argument for realism on one thing can't be an argument for non-realism on another thing, right? If we want to talk about realism, this isn't one thing where we can really hang our hat on. Honestly, it's just the way it goes. Anytime Madden tries to force itself to be realistic, the numbers are going to get really skewed. We talk about realism. You want to talk about, say, being able to add hot routes. Just because my quarterback is not Tom Brady doesn't mean I can't tell my running back to go on an angle route in real life. Promise you that's not real. Matt Ryan isn't sitting at the line of scrimmage and he's like, I wish I could send Devontae Freeman on an angle route, but I can't because I'm Matt Ryan. Tom Brady can do it. So I felt like it was a little rough at times. But again, I feel like what made it rough was not necessarily the pass rush itself, but the abilities within the game, especially for someone like Aaron Donald. If you played against Aaron Donald and you weren't the Patriots, you ran into that pretty hardcore, and that's fine. I think that that's maybe where the tuning needs to occur, not necessarily on the pass rush for players without all the special X Factor abilities, but it is what it is. I think they're going to touch it a little bit. I hope they don't touch it a lot. That's my take there. Additionally, pass leads for your quarterbacks, pretty poor. They were pretty poor. I think that being able to pass lead does introduce a bit of a skill gap, just a little bit. And I like when it's good. Sometimes it's too much. It's too overpowered. Back in Madden 25, pass lead was really, really overpowered. You could really cut the balls off well. But I feel like just because your quarterback says, I want to throw it on someone's outside shoulder, I want to throw it inside to them, doesn't mean that they should be less accurate. In my opinion, it shouldn't be overpowering. It shouldn't be able to lead the receiver 5 yards in or 5 yards out or 5 yards up or whatever it may be. But I would like to see the pass be on target based on their actual ratings and not just an inaccurate pass because of that. Second thing I noticed a lot was there's on-screen cues which would tell you how your pass was and if it was an accurate or inaccurate pass. A lot of times I saw bullet pass accurate pop up and that pass was sure not accurate. So I think that there's something to go there. Again, probably dealing more with pass leads. I don't always recall if I was pass leading in those situations or not, but it's something that probably just needs to be a little tuned up. I'm not saying complete every pass. I don't think that every pass should be accurate, but damn, they should probably be a little more accurate at times. Abilities. I feel like abilities are taking over. They took over the beta. They really, really did. It took everyone a couple hours to figure it out. And the way we were playing the game was based off of regs in MUT, which is where a lot of people are going to be playing MUT, draft, salary cap, etc. It's going to be a totally different game on day one. We're not going to hit this sort of point in Madden where it plays like regs for a long time. Tom Brady has every ability. In MUT, I'm not expecting that to happen ever. It's going to take a while for him to get abilities. If it's anything like it was this year, to get an ability, you have to have the proper archetype, and you had to hit a threshold and an overall rating. Those things are going to come in time. But I think the game we played today, if you go in and you play MUT, Weekend League and all that, it's going to be a very different feeling game because of those things. I feel like if there's the superstar pass rushers in MUT, that you can get them with these monster abilities early on, even if it's just one ability. It's going to feel kind of pay to win. It's going to feel that way. But at the beginning of the year in MUT, it sort of always does feel that way. So that is what it is. Next up, throw speed, release speed. I know a lot of people say, oh, you have to wind up to throw the ball. You do. You obviously do, but it definitely is a little slow. I know a lot of the way it was done was based off of like the way that motion capture is. It's a little more realistic type of throw that takes, but I feel like it is definitely slow. I'm okay with it being a little slower and having to throw a receiver open deep downfield. But on a lot of the short passes too, they just didn't happen. And if you ever rolled out of the pocket, you know, in past years, you could still just chuck the ball pretty well. This year, I felt like if you were outside the pocket, you tried to throw a ball, wait for a receiver to come back to you or something, that little windup killed you. Again, certain things I'm okay with. I would just like to see it fine-tuned a little bit. I don't think it needs to be scrapped. I just think if you can fine-tune it, great. If you can't, don't do a whole lot because we don't want to break the game. Player movement, very good. Definitely makes the game feel fun, and that is what I like. I know before I said I want to feel a little arcadey, and there were some comments on the past video which mentioned, it's not supposed to be arcadey. It is. The game really is supposed to be that way. You want to feel like you have full control over a player. If you're controlling a player who he's got kind of bricks for his feet, he shouldn't feel great. If you've got someone who's really agile, it should feel really good. And I think they did a pretty good job with that. And I was very worried about game speed, player speed at this point as well. It felt pretty good. No complaints on that. But again, we're playing regs where there's actually players with some speed. Once we get into MUT, it's probably going to feel a little slow. So keep that in mind. Possession catches still feel a little broken. A lot of times you would throw the ball, it hits receiver in the head. Don't know why that's a thing. Receivers, running backs, tight ends, they should all react to the ball. It seemed to occur on late passes to the sideline. And even if it's not necessarily late, late would be that they would end up out of bounds to catch the ball. But I would still prefer to see them animate to try and catch the ball, even if it's going to be an incomplete pass, instead of just hitting them in the back of the head. Super frustrating to see. Feels like it's a legacy issue at this point. Need to work on that. Zones. Saw both sides of the story where zones are overpowered. I don't feel like zones are overpowered. I feel like zones are pretty good. We don't want them to be like 91 zone, but at the same point too, I feel like we don't really know what is good. A lot of times if someone said, oh, the zones were good for me, they could have been using a cornerback with a really high zone rating. Someone who thinks that zones are bad could have been using someone with a low zone rating, right? So again, we don't really know what thresholds are in place or anything. So it's hard to say. I don't feel like the zones were terrible. I don't feel like they were overpowered. I feel like cloud flats were pretty bad. Personally, I saw people suggest that yellow zones, the hook zones and such, were bad. But again, a lot of the times, that's with the linebacker there. I think that's more on the linebacker than the zone itself. The linebackers don't react because they're intentionally coded to not react as well, to jump for balls and stuff. So you were able to make some passes, which you definitely couldn't make before. Again, is it a bad thing? Is it a good thing? We'll need to wait and see. I don't want to jump out the window and say they should tune these zones. I really want to actually get more and more into it and use some better linebackers, because a lot of the linebackers you had to use for online play, they weren't very good. They really weren't at all. If you played in the CFM mode for franchises and practice mode and stuff, you could have forced yourself to get a Deion Jones, Bobby Wagner, Luke Kuechly, players like that, and definitely better reacting. But I did even notice that, like, if you were in front of the ball, I was using like Kyle Van Noy, Landon Roberts and stuff. They got picks. It's not like they didn't, but there's definitely times when they probably should have stuck a hand out. But I think that's going to become part of the learning curve, where we are used to just saying, oh, catch the ball, hit triangle or Y. We may have to move to learning how to just go to SWAT in those situations. Just my take there. Clicking on the defenders once ball is passed seemed pretty good. You can cover a lot of ground that way, which is good because I think clicking on is a bit of a skill. And especially once you click on, since you have such freedom with movement, it's good. I think it's a good thing. I think one thing I saw that was pretty bad with it was when you would click on and there would be a pass, which would just be a lob, and the receiver had to stop. It was essentially an underthrown ball. You would click on, if you would try to strafe and pick the ball, a lot of times you would not animate. Very frustrating if you are in position. I don't necessarily think I should get an interception every time, but give me an animation. Make me feel like I had a chance. When I don't animate, I feel like I have no chance. And this is with defensive backs, right? It's with defensive backs. Next, playbooks and playbook depth. They did add a lot of stuff, a lot of RPOs, a lot of cool stuff. They added some new formations. Cool, great, awesome. And I'm glad that they did that. And I want them to keep updating stuff. But some of the stuff they added, there was one formation I was playing with in particular. I'm not going to say what it was, because I don't want to skew anything. But new formation, very little plays. If you want people to use what you put new in the game, you have to give depth and variety to formations. Give additional plays. You hurt the game when we don't do that. You force people back into the old thing. They're going to hop into bunch. People are going to hop into bunch. People are going to play in tight formations. People are going to play in the trips, tight end and stuff. That's where everyone is going to go directly to year after year because that's what works well. I don't understand why there's, you can't necessarily nerf certain formations. So you kind of can a little bit if you took plays out and stuff. But add a little more depth to certain formations is going to let people decide if they want to use them, because at this point some of the stuff is not usable, and it's unfortunate, man. It's unfortunate. Last thing I want to cover, I put my notes down, so I keep looking down, so I apologize, and I'm trying not to take too long. I don't want to try and cover everything. Design quarterback runs, fumble way too much. Quarterbacks on a scramble should fumble. Cool, no problem with that at all. Slide on a design quarterback run, a triple option or a QB draw. Quarterback just fumbles the ball pretty often. Even if they're not a good ball carrier, they should sort of have and act like a running back at that point, in my opinion. Even if, like I said, they have low carry. Just because someone has 40 or 50 carry in the game doesn't mean that they have no idea how to hold on to the ball. If you get hit stick, sure, greater chance of fumbling. But it's very basic tackle animations were causing fumbles. I noticed it quite a bit. I noticed that there was actually fumble opportunities on sacks. I like that. I think that that's a good thing, because the quarterback, a lot of times when he's getting sacked, if it's on his blind side, the fumble rate should indeed be up. So those are my takes. Overall, I enjoyed the game. I thought it was very fun. But again, I took it as a beta. Right? I wasn't trying to lab and find a scheme. Wasn't doing any of that. I was really just trying to see how the game played and find little places where it feels like it could be, maybe a little bit better here or there. But I really just wanted to experience the game as much as possible. And I think I did that in a really, really fair place. I played some head-to-head games, some play-a-friend games. Spent a lot of time in practice mode as well, trying to find other little things that didn't seem to work so well. There are definitely things I don't like. No huddling, just bringing you back to the line instantly, feels very overpowered for the offense. But that could be my take. It's not something that I think is broken. I feel like that's exactly what they intended. So if something is how they intended, that's their expected result. It's not broken. I just have a disagreement on it, right? I don't think there's necessarily tuning involved there. They would have to scrap the entire feature. I don't think they're going to scrap that feature, which is why I'm not going to bring it up as a feedback point, because it's useless feedback at that point. But what I want you guys to do, again, if you agree, disagree, whatever it may be, put some things that you liked down in the comment section. I did a poll on Twitter to see if you guys enjoyed the beta. It seemed pretty favorable. I am looking forward to Madden 20. I can't wait for it, and I hope you guys can't wait for it as well. It's going to be a fun year. It's going to be an exciting year. EA, don't break the game. When you put out patches, please do a lot of testing before you give it to us. Please, 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 because that's what happens. Again, a lot of people were very happy with the game. They want it shipped now. Cool. Like, if this was the game we got, this is the game we got, I'd be fine with it. We would play and we would learn it. But we have to remember we had 3 days, not even a full 3 days on the game. What breaks the game is going to come out some point in August, probably. And it's going to change people's opinions on the game, and then EA is going to patch that. And then that's going to be our cycle. It always is. So don't say this is the best game ever. It's a beta. People liked the beta last year. There were things they didn't like about it, but people liked the beta last year. We saw how the game ended up. So go into it with open eyes, open arms, open heart. Play Madden 20. See if you enjoy it. And then hopefully EA will make sure we enjoy it all year. I'm out. Peace.